How are you guys? Today we're going to have a look at the first Battle of Shanghai, or as it's referred to in Chinese studies as the January the 28th incident. Now, to do this, I had to do a little background research, and I'm very thankful to Star Urib for helping me with the background research to this, because although this battle is written about in lots of places, the events leading up to the battle are not really that hard to find or to put together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick history of Shanghai that will introduce you to all the elements at play. Now, Shanghai and the international settlement of Shanghai was formed in 1842 after the Treaty of Nanking. Shanghai was included among 5 treaty ports opened up to British merchants who established themselves in their own enclave. US and French merchants were soon also trading in Shanghai, and they too established their own settlements to the north and south of the British. In 1863, the British and US settlements merged. The French still stayed separate though. Citizens of these countries enjoyed extraterritoriality, and they were under consular jurisdiction. Although the city of Shanghai was a sovereign Chinese city, the establishment of the Shanghai Municipal Council in 1854 became the governing body of the settlement, with control of the police, sanitation and roads. By the 1880s, the Shanghai Municipal Council had grown into a powerful monopoly, with control over the gas, water, electricity and everything else from rickshaw licenses to prostitution and slavery, with the British consul as its titular head. In 1895, after signing the Treaty of Shimonoseki, Japanese subjects were granted extraterritoriality and rights, and they too began to arrive in Shanghai and the other treaty ports. Now, Japanese forces had been part of the 8-nation alliance that had defeated the Boxers. And after the defeat of the Boxers, China had to sign another one of the unequal treaties in the form of the Boxer Protocol. This protocol allowed Japan and the other members of the 8-nation alliance to maintain a permanent military presence in Shanghai and the other treaty ports. By 1932, Japan had 2 seats on the Municipal Council and about 3,000 military personnel present in the city. The Municipal Council had been building these things called extra settlement roads on and off for 70 years. They were officially to connect facilities and structures that were that had required protection during the Taiping Rebellion. The Taiping Rebellion was another anti-foreigner rebellion where, in Chinese history, it's the bloodiest war in Chinese history. The Municipal Council acquired administrative powers over these extra settlement roads, and that way they established quasi-concessions, which is what the Japanese are doing in Hankyu. This is not an official settlement. This is a quasi-concession. And what they would do is they would build more roads beyond the boundaries and then would try to gobble them up as part of their settlements. Now, in 1927, this part of Shanghai, the northeast, was given to the Japanese to defend in the case of another Taiping rebellion. But the Japanese used this as an excuse to build this very large naval depot in Hankyu. If you look at a map, Hankyu is like a thumb that sticks out from the peninsula of the rest of Hankyu. Now, this building is not in Japanese territory. It's been built by the Japanese under the clauses of the extra settlement roads. Now, this was a way for anybody to convolute in fact, the terms of the extra settlement roads rights are very ambiguous at all, and that's why Japanese have occupied this area. So by 1931, Hankyu was the center of Japanese power in Shanghai, and law and order had passed out of the hands of the Shanghai Municipal Council and was in the hands of Japanese police, of the Shanghai Municipal Police. Now, so we'll look at the extra settlement roads, and we can see that these are a way for Japan to constantly be provoking China. Now, as we see here, this is the Tiantang-on railway station. Now, by January 1932, tensions in the city of Shanghai were extremely high. We can't forget that Japan is busily occupying Manchuria, and that this has caused a lot of resentment amongst the Chinese people. They are having boycotts against Japanese goods and riots against Japanese provocation. Now, the Japanese are also egging these rioters and provocations onwards, because the Japanese want to totally control Hankyu, and they want to totally control China. But the main problem is that in Manchuria, the Japanese army is having a lot of success, and the Imperial Japanese Navy is a bit put out by this, because the two forces are forever in competition with each other. Now, what the Japanese Navy decides to do, and as I said, they have a right to have troops in the city of Shanghai, but not as far as this Hankyu. So we get to the period of January 1932, and there's riots in the city. The city is very uneasy. The Japanese have sought deniability in the ways that they provoke riots. Members of the Yakuza are operating in the city itself, in the areas of Hankyu, and they will spur on riots and civil unrest in order for the Japanese to legitimize their claim that said, we have to occupy Hankyu and the surrounding areas for the defense of our subjects and citizens. Now, all of this comes to a head when in January 7th, the 19th Route Army under General Ting Kai approaches the city. Now, this army is on the outskirts of the city for one reason, and that reason is that Chiang Kai-shek and the Kuomintang government is having a congress at this time, and the congress is about the leadership of China. Chiang wants to be the generalissimo, not only in charge of the KMT party, but in charge of the military apparatus of the country. Now, by having the deniability of the 19th Army, which officially is not a member, which is not an army of the National Revolutionary Army, it's actually a warlord army. Now, when warlord armies have approached the city before, it's always been bad news for the city. So the municipal council offers General Ting Kai a large sum of money to go away, because up to this time a warlord army was bad news. So the municipal council offers the 19th Route Army money to go away. However, the 19th Route Army stays in position just on the outskirts of Shanghai. So she's on the 19th Route Army is on the outskirts of Shanghai, as all these civil unrest is going on within the city. Now, many Chinese workers are pro the boycotts, and this means that a lot of Japanese business owners end up firing their workers. Now, the reason they fire them is because of anti-Japanese sentiment, but also, there's lots of workers. You can always get another men to work for a bit cheaper in Shanghai, and a lot of these workers are still on the streets upset. Now then, by mid-January, three Japanese princes of the Shinto religion, but followers, extreme advocates of the imperial way, are found to be antagonizing Chinese people in Xiaobei, which is the Chinese district of Shanghai. Now, these monks are set upon and attacked. Now, many reporters and many reports of this battle indicate that these monks were in fact agents provocateurs. Others say that these monks were actually killed by these Yakuza agents to escalate the situation and make sure that Japanese forces have plenty of excuses to activate their forces along the extra settlement roads and seize these areas. And as I said, they're doing this to protect Japanese businesses and citizens. Now, we can look at this line here. This is the Tiong. This is the Shanghai Wusong Railway line. Okay, and this station is Tian Tong An. Now, after a lot of these workers are sacked, they're in the streets protesting. One of the things that protest them, and remember, this is a series of provocations by the Japanese army, is the Japanese establish a security presence at the Tong'an station. They do this on about the 26th, the 27th of January. This is a very inflammatory move because the Japanese have no right to station troops along the Tong'an, but then again, they can also legitimately say it's on the other side of the extra settlement road, so we are entitled to base troops there. Now, the numbers of troops they base there are probably not above section level. It's at this point that workers from the mills start to construct defensive works around the station. Now, these defensive works are built under Chinese supervision on Chinese sovereign territory. Now, the machines are coming, so I'll have to get back to this. I'll quickly finish off. By the 29th, the Japanese seem to have withdrawn their troops from the stations, and on the 28th, these positions and positions along the Wusong between North Shanghai Station and Qiongwan Station on the Shanghai Wusong line are occupied by the forces of General Ting Kai. Now, this leads to a head, and on the 28th of January, the Japanese Navy has about 7,000 troops personnel present in the city, plus civilians in the form of a Naval Reserve Regiment. Now, the Naval Reserve Regiment are civilians and shopkeepers and businessmen that already live in Shanghai. They are not the reserve infantry regiments that belong to the Japanese army and commit much atrocity in the Second Battle of Shanghai. So what happens is that the Japanese decide that they will advance up to these positions. Now, in the Second Battle of Shanghai, we'll see lots of guns and weapons on top of this building. We do not see that in the first battle. In the first battle, the Imperial Japanese Navy attacks up the street with armored cars and field guns, 75mm guns. There are some Hotchkiss quick firers among them and some mountain guns. They use these to head up the streets, and they really believe that a show of force will make their army, the 19th Fruit Army, disperse. However, during the night of the 28th, General Ting Kai has ordered many hundreds of men to infiltrate the areas of Hankyu and begin sniping at the Japanese. Now, this sniping is not very accurate, but it is consistent. And the only way that the Japanese can reply to this is to set the buildings on fire. They don't have enough men to individually flush out every sniper. So they set fire to the building. So what I'm trying to do here is to show in one game the activities along the Shanghai Wusong rail track and the attack of the Japanese over the 28th and the 29th of January, an attack that will fail. We'll go into the attack. I'll try to get the whole game into 10 moves. I'm still working with forces and still painting forces, but I do want to do this introduction to you so that you could see the elements of the city of Shanghai that are quite hard to understand, i.e. the international settlement roads, the Japanese position in Shanghai, because this is not an official concession, it's a quasi-concession. You know, you look at maps and it says it's part of the international settlement, but actually that's debatable. That's a question for lawyers, really. So we'll look at the 28th and the 29th. I'll try to combine it into 8 games, into an 8-turn game. And when I start that, I'll do another presentation. Thank you for your time. Please don't hesitate to press like and subscribe. Once again, a big thank you to Star Arib for helping me with this, with a bit of research as far as the city's background goes. And always just never forget, the Chinese soldier fought with the least for the longest. Thank you very much. Bye bye.